In this video, we're going to take a look at upgrading the Acceler8 ASNA Local Database from Datagate 11 to Datagate 17. The use case for this is when you're upgrading AVR Classic from, say, 4x to 5x, or probably more likely 5.0 to 5.1 or 5.2. AVR 5.0 installed Datagate 11. Well, AVR 5.2 needs Datagate 17. So in this video, what we're going to do is upgrade the database first. In most AVR Classic upgrades, you probably should upgrade the database first. The AVR 5.0 database access is backwards compatible with Datagate 17. So that means that we can install 17 on a PC using 5.0, and that 5.0 app will continue to connect successfully to Datagate 17. So this way we can kind of have a separation of concerns on our upgrades. We can put a checkbox next to upgrading Datagate and then do the AVR Classic upgrade. So for most Classic upgrades, this is the first step when you're using, well, even if you're using Datagate for the IBM I or Datagate for SQL Server, upgrading that database is an important thing. In this step, we're kind of focusing on the local database, Acceler8. So let's take a look at what we got. The first half of this video, we'll just kind of inspect what we have, and then the other half will show how to upgrade it. So here we are on a Windows 11 box with AVR 5.0 installed. And if we go to the services, we can see that the current Datagate server is Datagate. Let's see what happens when I do this. We can see that the currently installed Datagate server is 11, which was what ships with AVR 5.0. We can also go to the database manager and see that it's working, and here we opened a file with the database manager. And then also we can do this. Got a really simple little program here. It doesn't do anything but have a declared disk file. Let me do this for that. It's got a declared disk file, and then it's got reads a record and shows a field name. So what that looks like then is this. And then there we're seeing that it's reading a record. So this shows us that AVR 5.0 is installed and working, and as we see here, it's working against Datagate 11. So after we install this upgrade that we're going to do to get to 17, it's going to replace that Datagate Server 11 service with the 17 service, and we'll see that after the upgrade, that 11 goes away and the 17 service will be sitting there. So that's the environment as it is. There's one more thing to consider, because when we upgrade Datagate, it's going to change the way database names get stored. So let's take a look at how they're stored in COM, and then when we get over to the upgrade, we'll take a look then. With the COM products, database names are stored. Let's kind of look in the database manager as well. Let's turn this off. Let's get the database manager up, and let's tell him that we want to work with database names, and the one we want to look at is this guy right here. So that is the ASNA underscore local underscore DB database name. Well, in the COM products, let's see here, hold on a second here, let's get this back where it belongs. In the COM products, this is a private database name. Private database names in the COM products are stored in the current user hive of the registry. So here we can see down here in current user, software, ASNA, down in databases, those are database name configurations there. And there we can see ASNA Local DB. Let me make that bigger for you for a second. There's the ASNA Local DB inside that key. And over here then is all of its attributes. So one of the places is we'll see right here the database name, right there, is ASNA. Whoops, I'm looking at the wrong one. Oh, no, I'm not looking at the wrong one. That's the database label, and I screwed up. That should have said ASNA Local DB, and it says ASNA Label. That's the database label. But this is the database name, ASNA Local DB. That's where the database name corresponds to it. That is this. So when you say, open this database name, it looks up by that database name and then gets these properties and applies them to that connection. If this were a public database, it's not in current user, but it would be down here in local machine. So I don't have any publics right now, just privates. And this is kind of important, not outrageously so, but you ought to know about it, because when we do the upgrade, these database names will be stored in a different place. So we'll make note of that when we get there. So that's the first half of this video, and then we'll pick up with the second half here in just a second. All right, new shirt, new day. Let's continue installing, upgrading Datagate for the local database on this PC. Just as a reminder, when we left, we've got AVR 5.0 installed on this, and we are moving, and that installs Datagate Server 11, and we want to upgrade that to 17. So, first thing we're going to do, I've already downloaded everything, but let me just kind of remind you here. Let's pretend, well, let's go ahead and, let's just pretend, because I've already got it. So I'm going to go to ASNA.com, and I'm going to go to support, the downloads. If you haven't downloaded lately, you do not need an account to download now. So that's a little easier. And so the first thing we want to do, and it seems counterintuitive, the thing we want to install to get the Datagate 17 on that local database is this guy right here, the ASNA Visual RPG. Is this guy right here, the ASNA, this guy. That's what you want to download and install to put the Datagate 17 on a PC. Seems a little counterintuitive because it says .NET, and it's going to install a few things you don't need, but it's no big deal. That is what will put the Datagate 17 service and let you work with a local database with Datagate 17 on there. And then conversely, or also, if you were talking to Datagate for SQL Server or the IBM I on a FAT client, that would also install what you need. And then in a little bit, the other thing we're going to do, and let's just mention it right now, is we're also going to download from the Datagate family, we're also going to download this Datagate monitor here. We're also going to download this guy because we are installing a .NET part. It won't affect your COM stuff. And that .NET stuff stores database names differently. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. So those are the two things that I've already downloaded, but let's go through the process just for one of them just to show you. We'll get this deployment here. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to put company, country, my name, email address. I'm going to click that you've got my permission to log my stuff to see who's downloading what. And then watch up here at the top of the screen. And it told me that a download link has been mailed to me, and may take a minute or two for it to arrive. Once it gets there, you can download it, and then you'll be ready to go. Now, I've already done that. And if I go out here to downloads, pardon me, right here are the things I need. This is the deployment setup, and this is that monitor. We'll do the monitor in a little bit. Let's do Datagate first. Now, you want to be sure that you don't have any users connected to that database, to any of your databases on Datagate 11. If this is a single user PC, it's pretty easy to get them off. You might be doing this on a server though, so be sure that you have everybody off of that PC. It's very important. It's very important that they be out of that database when you do this work. Now, let's go ahead and install this deployment. Also need to think about a license key for this thing. Now that's gonna pop up this guy right there, begin. Doesn't take very long. For the record, I'm doing this on a Windows 11 box. And I think it'll take about 3 minutes. So I'm going to let it run, and then I'll come back and talk to you when this is done running. Okay, it's done. Click Finish. Now the first thing we want to notice is if we go over here to Services, and if we, let's close that and refresh it. I don't know how to refresh it. I think it's, here, refresh. There. Look that now we no longer have Datagate Server 11, we have Datagate Server 17. So it did the work, the installation did the work of shutting down that service, deleting it, and replacing it with 17. There was no work for us to do. Now the proof's in the pudding, so let's do this. Let's open up AVR. And we got that little test program that we saw. So we'll open that guy up, Recent Projects, this guy. And let's run it. I kind of wondered about that. I got a missing Datagate license. This is because we didn't license Datagate 17. I got ready to say it was because I'm using a VM in Azure, but that's not the case in this case. So let's get this out of the way for a minute. Let's go to the Registration Assistant. Let's go to Datagate, and that's what I need to install, Datagate 17 for Windows and servers. Now my AVR 5.0 is still licensed. So I'm back, crisis averted. When we left, we were going to open up AVR and see that running with AVR. So let's do that now. Open up the project. And this doesn't do anything but open a file and read a record. And there we see it working. So we successfully installed the new Datagate 17 for the local database, and it's working with AVR 5.0 just fine. Now let's open up the Database Manager, and again the Database Manager is working as well. So there we see that. Everything's good there. And just to review, when you're going to upgrade that, when you're going to upgrade that database for your COM work, you go to Product Downloads, and as unintuitive as it sounds, you go to the Visual Studio. You use the number. We want to get 17, so find the number here. That'll be the Oscar family. Oscar is 17, and you want this Windows deployment. That's what we installed. If you were doing Datagate 16, you'd come down here to the Nancy family, which is 16, and there is the Windows deployment right there that you need. Now, we also got that the Datagate monitor. Datagate 17 monitor. Let's talk about that for a minute. This doesn't matter much, but as we saw in the previous video, if we open up the registry editor, this is a private database. So private databases are stored in the current user, software, ASNA, blah, blah, blah databases are stored right there in the registry. Well, and that works fine, and the database continues to work. If you should happen to want to install .NET, the AVR for the .NET framework, you would need to create a .NET database name for this database. Now, if that doesn't apply to you, then you can hang up right now because you've got what you need to upgrade your database. But let's take a look at what we do here. Let's install that Datagate monitor. So I'm going to come to my downloads again. I'm going to put the monitor on. This doesn't take very long. It doesn't need licensed, and this is a very quick install. All right, now I'm going to open up the monitor. There's the DataGate monitor. So this is something that there isn't a corresponding feature for in COM, but this is a little freestanding utility that you can use to create database names for .NET on a Windows PC. The slot that this fills for us many times is to create .NET database names on a Windows web server where you don't want to install Visual Studio and go through all that nonsense. Now, it can read COM database names, so it's showing us a COM database name right there. It cannot write to them and it can't change them, but it can open them, it can read them. What I'm going to do is create another database name. I'm going to say create a database name, add a .NET database name, and I'll keep this one to be private. And I'm going to call this ASNA Local DB dot, kind of long. And then I got to make this a little bit bigger so I can see my, it wants to know what I want to do here. I want to go to, I'm kind of afraid of something here. There we go. It just popped up in my, let's do that again. Let's do that. Let's do that again. I'm going to edit that guy. Connection properties. I'm afraid I'm using a virtual machine. Oh, there we go. Now it's querying the host for labels. So don't get in a hurry like I just did. We want this guy here. Say OK. And that's fine. That's all fine. Let's say test connection. Password not established. Oh, we need to, I'm not using server-based authentication, so we need to test connection. And this is going to work. It takes a second. There we go. That works. So now, let's see, I've done applied, I've done all that. Now I can't open that database name from here, but if I had .NET, AVR for .NET installed, I now have a .NET database name that talks to the same local instance, the same local server, the same local database with AVR, with DataGate 17. And the one interesting thing about this is that those .NET database names aren't stored in the registry. They're stored in users, username, or it varies whether or not they're public or private. I'm just going to show you that one, and it's app data, local, ASNA, DataGate. There's where .NET database names are stored. So if we open that with Notepad, what you're going to see is a bunch of gobbledygook. So this is where the database names are stored for .NET, and they're encrypted so you can't see what's going on, you can't steal them. The idea behind this, it was twofold. First of all, about 2005 or 6, somewhere in there, it fell out of favor to use the registry as a best practice for storing application configuration elements. So .NET, we wanted to use Microsoft's best practices, and they said write it to the app data folder in here. And then the other reason was this makes it much easier to import and export database names. So we could use this somewhere else. And you got to be careful. You got to import it and export it, because this database name can't just simply be picked up and moved to another PC. It is encrypted and tied to this machine. So that's all about that. So the short story is, to upgrade your local database to a new version, you go get that .NET deployment and install it, and you're good to go. And just as a minor consideration, your database names, your COM database names won't work with AVR for .NET. You'll need to create .NET database names. Now, you don't need to get the monitor if you're a developer, because you can do that from within Visual Studio as well. I grabbed the monitor because I don't have Visual Studio in this box, and I just wanted to make you aware of it. If you're not using AVR for .NET, you can forget all that discussion about those separate database names and all that stuff, because otherwise things continue to work like you expect them to. You'll still continue to create database names in the database manager. You'll just under the covers be using that latest version. And as we said in the first half of this video, this is what opens the door for you then to have a nice successful upgrade to AVR 5.1 or 5.2, because they require Datagate 17. And now you've already got that in place, and that will be an easy, simple upgrade. One more thing and then we're done. If you go to ASNA.com, and if you search for upgrade, oops, if you search for upgrade, Classic Upgrade Guide, AVR Classic Upgrade Guide. Here's a little article, and there's not much to it, but this describes going ahead and then upgrading AVR from 5 something to 5.1 or 5.2. So just search for Classic Upgrade Guide or Upgrade Guide, and you'll find that on the website. So, thanks for watching.